All right, I'll call this meeting, this regular meeting of the Mount Horeb Area School District Board of Education to order. It is 7:03. Roll call. Danny.
Here.
Jeff.
Here.
Diana.
Here.
Jessica.
Here.
Kimberly.
Here.
And Leah. No, wait.
Here.
The square is moved. Did we get everybody? Okay, good, awesome. Dr. Salerno has the meeting. Can you certify that the meeting has been properly noticed?
Yes.
Do we have someone to read the mission statement?
I'll read it. The Mount Horeb Area School District, in partnership with the community, is dedicated to nurturing, educating, and challenging all students, preparing and empowering them to be productive, responsible, and self-fulfilled members of society.
Thank you, Diana. And before we move on to item 2, I just want to thank Diana for her service as president, not only the board, but to the community. Thank you, Diana. Item 2A, approval of the presented and revises. Are there any revisions to the agenda? No revisions. Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the presented agenda.
So moved.
It's been moved in by Diana.
Second.
And seconded by Jeff that we approve the presented agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed will say, pardon me?
We were just saying aye.
I just said, well,
Oh,
all those.
I was just saying aye. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were trying to start a conversation.
No.
I'm joking. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed
Aye.
will say no.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The motion, the motion carries, and the presented agenda is approved. Item 2B, approval of the April 20th, 2020 regular and executive session minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Really?
Actually,
Oh,
they're not. We have to.
They're
take
not
that.
there.
I apologize.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll have to table this item. The minutes weren't posted, so we'll take those up at the next meeting. Item 3, addressing the board. 3A, school news. Dr. Salerno.
Oh, good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you all, and I especially appreciate seeing Allie Gundrum up there in our left-hand corner of our screen. Allie, you want to go first?
Sure. Two big things going on this past week. Future Problem Solvers, which is a middle school and high school group, had their virtual state bowl. We had a middle school group place 4th in the state, which is amazing. A high school team that placed 2nd, and then 2 high school individuals in the top 4. And so 2 individuals and then that 1 team have been invited to the virtual international competition. And so that's very exciting news. Other than that, our student council is working on organizing a virtual teacher appreciation week. So hopefully you'll see some of that for staff in this week, actually. Going out, just normally we do, we'll bring in breakfast or things like that, but obviously that's a little space constrained right now. And so just trying to get some videos and emails out showing that we appreciate our teachers. And that's it.
Awesome work. Great job.
That is great, because it is Staff Appreciation Week, and how grateful we are to all of those who help carry on the important mission of education for our kids. Increasingly so, it's not just education related to academics, but also social emotional needs of our kids. And more than any year, I think this year is all the more important for us to recognize all staff members who are just being wonderful beacons of light for our students and our families. I also wanted to say thank you to our FFA. They are in the process of working very closely with a number of entities here within our community to help support our farmers who are, as you well know, pick up the paper, you can see they're going through a difficult time. And if you have a chance, do take a look at our district's Facebook page for details of the good work FFA is doing. And then lastly, while they're on the Facebook page, take a moment, if you don't mind, to look at the Intermediate Center's video postcard to all of our staff. It will absolutely warm your heart. And I want to thank all the staff who put that video postcard together for our families and our staff. Thank you.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any school news? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item 3B, citizen comments.
I don't see any citizens on the call. No.
No citizen comments. Thank you. Item 4A, recommendations and employee employment status matters. Dr. Salerno.
Nothing in particular to highlight. We're grateful to, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. There is an important person to highlight. How could I have forgotten? You know, we are very fortunate to have gone through a long and thorough search for the executive assistant to the board and to the superintendent. And Shelby Potterman is a name that's being recommended. Shelby will begin her work here as soon as Wednesday at noon.
Awesome. Great.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Jeff has moved and Diana has seconded a motion to approve our personnel transactions. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve personnel transactions will say aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed, nay. I have to remember there's a delay, I'm sorry. The ayes have it, the motion carries and personnel transactions are approved. Item 5, consent agenda. There are 4 items that you can see there. Would anyone like any or all of those pulled for discussion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Might I-
Oh, safety and wellness needs to be pulled.
We're
I apologize.
We're gonna need to table approval of the Safety and Wellness Committee report because it was not posted to board docs, but we can approve the consent agenda with items A, C, and D. So I'll entertain a motion to approve items A, C, and D.
I adjust my motion to approve A, C, and D.
Moved by Diana,
This is Leah. I second. This is Jessica.
seconded by Jessica. To approve the consent agenda items A, C, and D. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say nay.
Aye.
The ayes have it, the motion carries. The motion carries. The consent agenda is approved.
Try to guys slow that down.
Item, I heard him.
I didn't hear anything say.
Item 6A. COVID-19 update from the Community and Legislative Engagement and Advocacy Committee.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to Jessica Aragoni, who's been a member of our Community and Legislative Engagement team now for several years, and now a Board of Education member. In a moment, she's going to share a little bit about the good work the committee's done. I thought maybe I would just lead us off on a topic that has to do with summer school. You may remember in my last report to the board, I had mentioned that we had given testimony to the State Department of Public Instruction with regard to current law related to online learning only being for students in 7th through 12th grade and for academic recovery purposes only. I'm pleased to tell you that the state superintendent has honored the request of myself and all other kinds of superintendents and those interested in this topic to expand virtual learning of summer school through this upcoming summer. And what that looks like for us right now is still pending. And the rationale behind that is because we're trying to get some additional information with regard to what exactly is covered. Where are the devil's in the details, so to speak? Will it include synchronous or asynchronous teaching? Synchronous meaning that it's live time with the teacher and would be during a designated period of time, or asynchronous meaning that it would be teaching on demand, if you will, much like what we're doing right now. If it allows for asynchronous teaching, then it would help, I think, our families better, just simply because many of them are accessing their families' computers and internet during the school day. And so this would allow for some time shifting, if you will, of student learning. If that can happen, then of course, we would do everything we can to help accommodate for that. At the very least, at this time, we do not believe that we're going to have summer school in our brick and mortar traditional method, but rather looking at it from a virtual perspective. We're grateful to all of our families for all the work they did in helping to sign up for courses back on April the 15th, and we hope to have some solutions sooner rather than later. This would also include what impact this might have to funding and what impact this might have on what we call our enrichment offerings. This is a new initiative that we started last summer in order to avoid any regression in recruitment of student learning because we had that long extended summer. And it worked out so well that the board thoughtfully allowed us to continue that. But who knew COVID-19 was on the horizon for us? And so we know with that in mind that there's lots of questions about what does school look like starting in the fall? And as you may have heard me mention in our last update to the board, there was some conversation about potentially polling our community about starting school early. Well, we had thought about that, but that idea was completely scrubbed when we heard of the new Badger Bounce Back plan that would have kept, as you know, its phase 2, only up to 50 students into a building at any given time. And so we would like to maybe hit the pause button on that and revisit that question and a host of other questions that might come to people's minds. And that's really where I invite our newest board member, Jessica Aragoni, to kind of talk about the good work being done by the community and legislative engagement team.
So last Monday night when we had our committee meeting, we discussed the best way to engage with the community right now, and we decided that it would be best to continue to engage with the community around COVID-19 and what supports they need. We talked about a few different possibilities and decided that surveying families would be the best idea, whether that was around general family needs, regardless of COVID-19 times, what parent support were needed right now in terms of learning at home, and then also what concerns families had for returning in the fall. So we discussed a few different possibilities. We decided to draft some questions. Kimberly very kindly started us all off and drafted several questions for us. And then I dove in and started to work on it, and I personally got a little stuck because I felt like we were being a little preemptive in asking questions when we were really unsure as to what was going to happen in the fall, and didn't want to ask questions that we couldn't necessarily do anything with the data that we collected, or to not be able to be responsive to families and to parents based on questions that we asked, because things might end up being out of our control. As Dr. Salerno has said in the past, it sounds like what happens in the fall might be determined at the state level, more so than at our local level. So we kind of have to wait and see. So I suggested to our committee that maybe we survey families, but maybe we wait a little longer and see if we can figure out a little bit more specific information about what is going to be happening in the fall. And so then two other committees, so I sent that email to Dr. Salerno, he shared it. Two other committee members said, yes, we should survey families, but maybe we should wait. I guess something that I should tell the rest of you is we were anticipating sending the survey out at the end of May. So right now we're kind of on hold. I would be curious as to feedback from the rest of the board in terms of what you all think in terms of surveying families about, not just their concerns for the fall, but then, what are ways that we can, as a school district, help parents and families prepare, what supports they'll need, so that we can proactively help them, but yet maybe wait till we have a little more information. So I'd be just curious as to you all's thoughts as we continue to plan for this possible survey.
So I would agree, this is Diana, I would agree that we probably need more information before we can survey. That makes sense to me, but I do like the idea of reaching out to families and seeing how we can support them at this time.
Other thoughts?
This is Kimberly. I think that it is wise to only survey about where we're at right now with the end of the school year virtual learning and any immediate needs that maybe we haven't covered already in our services that we advertise.
I would agree.
Great. Go ahead, Dan. I'll interrupt you.
I just said that I would agree with what Diana and Kimberly said.
I think, yeah, kind of on that note, I know that the virtual learning survey about like the amount of work, access to technology was a different survey, but I think keeping it limited to that type of stuff as that changes, especially because I feel like at least in my household, like some things have changed in terms of the type of work we're doing or the work that's being given out. So I think doing that survey again could be valuable. But yeah, I don't know how much you would be able to ask about what's happening in fall.
Well, I agree with all that's been said about the survey. I'm a member of the committee too. We had a great conversation about the survey and the start of the questionnaire and all those kinds of great things. I guess I'd encourage us, and we can take this up at our next committee meeting, of course. I would encourage us to continue to build out the questionnaire so that whenever it is that it makes sense for us to deploy it, that we're ready to do that. And it seems like we're well on our way with the work that Jessica and Kimberly have been doing. So thank you.
I agree with that too, Rob.
Is there further discussion on this issue? Thank you for your report, Jessica. And
You're
welcome.
welcome. Thank you.
Item 6B, status of international trips.
Well, thank you again, Board President Heiss, and welcome to everyone who's on the call this evening. We do have actually 3 international trips that are currently on the books. The first of which, as you may know, is the trip to London, England to participate in their New Year's Day celebration. But even before that would be occurring would be the FFA, Canadian fishing trip. And then lastly, next summer, now it looks like we'll be looking at a trip to Costa Rica as opposed to the June 2020 trip that has been postponed. Maybe let's take those in order if you don't mind. First, thank you. I see Will Jansen's on the call this evening. A tip of the hat to Will as rest of our music colleagues for the work that they have done to get us to this point. Will very thoughtfully led the team in developing a comprehensive survey to families, kind of getting a gauge as to much has changed in our world, both from a health perspective, but also an economic perspective, and wanted to kind of feel for if any changes people might have in attending the trip this winter break. And Will, if you don't mind, I might just share a little bit about what we learned as a result of that, and certainly by all means feel free to join us in sharing any additional insights you have. What we've come to learn as a result of that survey is that about 60% of respondents felt like it would be appropriate to look at something different. That the time that we have right now for us to go to London, there's too many uncertainties. And as a result, the question was, do we cancel or do we postpone? And because we don't have all the answers and it takes a great deal of preparation to do any kind of London trip, it's our collective recommendation, the music department and that of your administrative team, to cancel this upcoming trip to London this winter, and then keep an eye towards another invitation that could occur for students here down the road. We feel like with all the uncertainties that are occurring both around the potential seasonality of the trip, as well as the fact that if our students are not able to return back to school here in the fall, the potential for them to be able to practice and be the student band that we know them to be might compromise the students' ability to put on the show we know they're capable of doing. Not to mention, of course, if there is someone who gets ill while there, the requirement that we be quarantined 14 days in England could be obviously a very difficult possibility as well. Moreover, it's important to understand that this is a decision that was not taken lightly. We also knew we were up against the clock, so to speak. Board members, you know through my communications with you that in order for us to obtain a full refund, save, of course, any deposits, we would need to act by June 1st. And we know that June 1st is going to be here before you know it. So At this time, we believe we have a successful system in place that would allow for families who had deposits down on the trip to even get that money back. And the system we intend to do is through a letter that Mr. Jansen will be sending out here in the next day or two that would leverage the dollars that were earned from our fundraising efforts up to this point. So up to as you know, the deposit was $200, up to $200 would be refunded back to the students to defray the cost of their deposit. So it's ultimately our goal that everyone should be made whole as a result of this decision, assuming, of course, that people did any fundraising. So might I just turn to Mr. Jansen to make certain that I haven't missed anything before we talk to the other couple of trips? Will?
No, I think you've covered it accurately. Thank you. I can answer
thank you.
questions if people have any.
Well, I have a question. Can you just share the frequency of the invitation for Mountain? Do we get, some people have said we get invited every year, and I just was wondering the odds of being invited next year or the following, or what that would look like.
My understanding from the individuals that we work with is that based on the work we've done in previous events that we've been with over there, they've been pretty happy with how the kids have handled themselves, and that we would be welcome to come back when it works in our schedule.
I had a question about the fundraising and the deposits. Is that something that collectively, like if someone's made enough to cover their own deposit, does that, if they've made more than that from fundraising, does that go to people who wouldn't have necessarily gotten that money back otherwise? Or is it a pool effort, like however much we fundraise total is spread out?
Yeah, great question, Allie. We will be keeping, as we already have, a line item for each student who had fundraising, and keeping those dollars in your account. So if you fundraised more than $200, for example, let's say you had $300 in that account, you would be given a check up to $200 to cover your deposit, and the additional $100 would stay in a coffer with your name on it. That's not something you can withdraw later on. Eventually, down the road, when we do decide to go back to a trip of this nature, or perhaps even some other trip, you'd be able to tap those dollars at that time. It's not convertible to cash.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know if this is a possibility because I know there's a lot of technical things with fundraising, but I know I had been speaking to a couple of my friends, especially, you know, the incoming seniors who for sure won't be able to pull that towards another trip. And I know there was interest between me and a couple of my friends who had been working quite a lot of hours in fundraising, if there was a way to waive that to other students, if you, do you know what I mean? Like, as opposed to retaining that in your.
Yeah, these are student dollars, and the only people who can dictate what happens to those student dollars are students themselves. And so likely you have students who are leaders within your band program who could collectively make a decision to do something differently for those dollars that would be expiring, such as the case that you talked about. But other than that, no, we would be keeping separate line items for every student, and we'd go from there. I appreciate your thoughtfulness. Here you are trying to make sure everyone's made whole, and that would ultimately be our goal as well. Sounds like, Mr. Jansen, a great deal of fundraising has been done in order to make us be as successful as we are launching into this. Isn't that right? Does that answer your question, Allie?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And I also want to take a moment to discuss the FFA trip. As you know, this would have been the 53rd Canadian trip, and it was originally scheduled for June 21st through June 28th. And as you know, that doesn't look like that's a very real possibility, as even we understand the border is not open to non-essential business as well. And so the FFA is proposing a new date, Tuesday, July the 28th through Tuesday, August the 4th. This, of course, would be pending, again, the reopening of the border between the United States and Canada. And as you might imagine, we also, bless their hearts, they've been trying to figure out how to make this happen while making certain all students could participate in graduation, which is right now scheduled for July the 26th. If graduation were to be held, as we hope it will on July 26th, why then we hope that we can go ahead and move forward with a trip to Canada. If it's not, then I know the team understands that we're going to need to rethink the trip at all this summer. So more information to follow there. And then late this afternoon, I see welcome to Steve Austin, who's also on the call tonight. Steve is instrumental in getting us started with the Costa Rica trip. And we know that that trip was originally scheduled for this upcoming June of 2020. That trip has been rescheduled, as I mentioned at the onset of my comments tonight, to June of 2021. Here again, our faculty and staff have done a really superb job of getting input from those impacted. Back on March the 17th, when we first learned that the school year was going to be shortened, Steve and his team immediately started to survey families and gave them the option of canceling their trip. They would lose a deposit, it sounds like, of up to $500. But that decision continues to be in place through December 15th. Isn't that right, Steve?
Yes, that's correct. We're looking at December 15th is our decision-making date for traveling in June of 2021. And we would leave the Tuesday after school gets out in June of 2021. The terms and conditions of the contracts that the family signed with the tour company are open until a December 15th decision date. Hopefully we'll have a little more clarity about what the world looks like by December 15th.
Very good, Steve. Thank you for your leadership and those who are helping plan that trip as well. How fortunate we are to have a Board of Education that supports international travel, that provides such richness to our students' overall learning experience, but we just want to be prudent and measured in the steps that we take. So with that being said, we'd be happy to entertain any questions any board members might have.
All right, hearing no further discussion, I think we'll end by thanking Steve and Will for their leadership and move to 6C, Information and Advocacy Report, percent of seniors meeting college board recommendations for course of study. Mrs. Straka.
Thank you very much. Would you like me to share my screen, or how would you like to have the presentation?
That way it can be recorded. Sarah, thank you.
I'm sorry, Steve, say that one more time.
I'll start sharing on my end of the screen, so that way it can be part of the recording.
Gotcha. Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, so first, please excuse the date. This presentation was originally scheduled for our last meeting, but it got postponed due to other agenda items in that April meeting. So today I'd like to have a brief conversation about where our students are going after they leave Mount Horeb High School. As President Heiss said, we'll be looking at the percent of seniors meeting College Board recommendation after they graduate. How are we doing as a high school in certain areas? And then the percent of students who persist from that first year, that freshman year, and graduate from college within 6 years. The full advocacy report has more detail. I just pulled highlights for this presentation. So in looking at slide 3, which is the course mediation slide, this is a report provided by the UW System Schools that annually looks at the incoming graduating class and how many math or English remediation classes need to be taken. We've had a steady percentage of students who have to take a math remediation course, and that's something that we are looking at over time. English, though, we don't seem to have that high percentage. Any report that has 6 students or less have an asterisk. So we don't have any students that fall within that category of needing remediation when they go on to college. In looking at students who attend a tech school in slide 4, I wanted to show the 5-year change over time of students who are considered prepared versus not prepared. I chose math, but any of the 4 areas within the full report show similar trends, I should say. So one piece to look at is that lines or rows 1 and 3 are all the students that attend Madison College that year who are entering from high school to college. And then rows 2 and 4 are those coming from Mount Horeb. As you can see over time, the Mount Horeb numbers are steady or slightly increasing, whereas those all numbers are also decreasing over time for Madison College. So it seems that over time, our students are doing better as they enter Madison College on their testing than the general population at Madison College. Then shifting gears to look at students who enter a 2-year or 4-year university right after high school. And as you can see over time, we have more students who are entering a 4-year versus a 2-year. Within the report, I pointed out this is an interesting fact, but we also have to look at the dates at the bottom. We have the most recent information from those who entered college in the 2018 school year, and we know that our seniors are entering college in the 2020 school year. But it seems like that gap is widening of students entering a 4-year versus a 2-year. And this is interesting because we've been doing more work with academic career planning, and we have a community alliance group called CAST, where we have various stakeholders in our community looking to promote the CTE area. This group started a couple years ago. So as we continue to work with them as a school district, and we also promote and want kids to look at other career fields that maybe don't require a 4-year college degree, that they start to become more educated in that. So maybe we'll see some shifts, and this gap that we're seeing between the green line and the orange line may level out or decrease over time. The last slide, slide 6, looks at that freshman to sophomore year persistence. Over the past 7 years, we've been tracking through a program that we purchased from the National Clearinghouse, the Student Tracker program, and looking at approximately 89% of our freshmen to sophomore year students from Mount Horeb High School into college persist. We see that average red line be about 89%, which is higher than the national average, which is 74% of students who persist from their freshman year to their sophomore year. So that's the report in a nutshell. Any questions or wonders from our board?
That's okay. So Sarah, what's for indicator 6, % of students who persist beyond their first year and graduate college within 6 years? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm gonna grab that area from the report. So over time, the % of our high school class will have completed a degree. So the most recent information we have then is from the class of 2013, because they graduate then and then go through that 6-year time period. So that's going pretty far back into looking at that graduating class. But on average, we have about, I believe, 55% of our students who, once they enter a 4-year institution, graduate within 6 years. The national average for an undergraduate seeking a bachelor's degree is 60%. So we're just underneath that national average line.
Thank you.
I can't help but notice that the overall number of students who are attending post-secondary studies coming from Mount Horeb continues to grow. And I think that in itself is a good sign, and I'm grateful to you as well as others within our community who are trying to focus on not just a 4-year pathway, but also a pathway that will lead to skills within our trades. And we have some work cut out for us, no doubt. But every opportunity that you've afforded and the team has afforded to give kids firsthand experiences, business in the backyard and the like has gone a long way in this regard. So thank you, Sarah.
So one more question, Sarah. Do you think that the new math curriculum will aid in making these numbers a little more favorable regarding math remediation?
I think that getting that conceptual piece is important for kids and continuing that on so they really understand the math behind the math. But also as we look at math sequencing at the high school with the Algebra A and Algebra B and slowing down math for students who just may need more time to understand those concepts will be important too. So as we look at our high school scope and sequence and vertical alignment, that'll be a piece of it. But as we do use our new elementary math curriculum, that's going to push up to what we do in the middle school as well and making it more conceptual for kids.
And refresh my memory, when did we start the A and B course? Was that 3 years
2 years
ago?
ago? 2 or 3 years ago, yeah. Mhm.
3? Okay. Thank you.
Other questions or comments for Sarah? Any final comments from you, Sarah?
Thank you, President Heiss. It's so fun to call you that.
Well, that's nice of you to say. All right, well, hearing no further discussion on item 6C, we'll thank Sarah for a great report and move on to item 7, action items. Item 7A, consideration of 2020-2021 CISA 2 service contract.
Good evening, board members. This is a document that looks very familiar to you, no doubt. This is our annual recommendation of services, purchase services through our local cooperative. Asking for your approval, please.
Motion to approve. Second.
Jeff has moved and Diana has seconded a motion to approve the CISA 2 service contract for 2020-2021. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the contract will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. The motion carries. The CISA 2 service contract for 2020-2021 is approved. Item 7B, consideration of purchase of transit van for special education using grant dollars.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just if you don't mind me going back for 30 seconds and just referencing if board clerk Leah Lipska would be willing to stop by the offices at some point soon to sign that CISA 2 contract, I'd greatly appreciate it so we can get that out in the mail. And as President Heiss had mentioned here this evening, we do have grant dollars from our transitions grant that have been made available for the purchase of a special education van, approximately $25,000. That coupled with an additional $10,000 we have from federal IDEA dollars allows us to make purchase of the recommended vehicle you see there in board docs. You may be saying to yourself, well, why would we be paying $35,000 for a new vehicle when you can buy a used one for $33,000? And the answer to that quite simply is, A, we wanted a new car and we also wanted a vehicle that had all-wheel drive on it. We know, especially as we're driving children around our community in the wintertime, it can be especially dicey, and we ask for your thoughtful consideration of this budgeted item.
Motion approved.
Second.
Jeff has moved and Diana has seconded a motion to approve the purchase of a transit van for special education using grant dollars. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it, the motion carries, and the purchase of the transit van for special education is approved. Item 7C, consideration of 2020-2021, say that 5 times fast, fee schedule.
And board members, this should look very familiar to you as well. Again, we're not proposing any increases in fees. We want to thank Michelle Dank, who has worked very closely in order to keep those costs down where possible, and you'll see that there's been no changeover year over year.
Motion approved.
Jeff has moved.
Second.
Second, this is Kimberly.
Has seconded. A motion to approve the 2020-2021 fee schedule. Is there any discussion?
This is Leah. It looks like there is an increase for athletics for adults compared to last year.
We are proposing no change. Thank you for catching that. Which line is it that you're referring to?
It's the second line for athletic passes. It's, adults have been $4, and it looks like proposed would be $5.
We are not going to be changing that fee. I don't know how that got.
might be a WIA thing.
Oh,
And it's been there probably for a while, so I don't remember.
Do we need to revisit this?
I'd like to table this, Mr.
Okay.
President.
Yep.
And if you don't mind, thank you so much, Member Clerk Lipska, for catching that. Let me double check with the WIAA to see that that's the case. I think that would be ill-timed advice in increasing fees, but we'll check with the WIAA. Might I also reference, as it relates to athletics, is that there are some families who paid that $75 fee to participate in spring sports. And now that a decision is made that we're not going to be able to participate in spring sports, we're going to begin the process of refunding the $75 fee there as well. So more information to follow here in the coming days.
Steve, can I ask you a question about the fee schedule? Just a question.
Please.
So as far as school lunch here, we just have like the regular lunch and not the extra items listed. Is there a way to get the listing with the extra items and the cost for those? Like when kids buy a smoothie or whatever.
Okay, so you're thinking about what the a la carte items are.
I'm just, yeah, I mean.
I can get that. I'll be happy to provide it to the
That'd be
board in a
great.
future update to the board. Yes, a la carte prices and what's offered.
Thanks.
Very good. So we'll revisit, we'll table item 7C and bring it back when we have that question about the WIAA answered. Moving on to 8A, citizen comments. All right. Hearing none. We'll look at item 9, future agenda items. One thing that I heard Sarah say that I would like to, prompted a thought that I'd like to add to this list is an update from CAST. I think it would be awesome if the board heard an update from CAST and what they're doing. Are there other future agenda items people have in mind? Okay, we'll move on to item 10, schedule of next meetings. Is there anything unusual here, Dr. Salerno?
As I do a quick review, no. The only change I might mention is that the community and legislative engagement and the Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation meeting will be meeting on Tuesday, May the 26th, not on Memorial Day.
Okay, awesome. That's a good.
That's pretty good.
That's a good thing.
So we're probably not going to be.
That will increase attendance substantially. All right, any questions about item 10? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Jeff and seconded by Diana that the meeting be adjourned. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor will say aye. Opposed, no.
Aye.
The motion carries and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.